If you're interested in experimentation and specifically Optimizely Web, and you want to know what's new recently, then this is a must-watch video for you. Now, within this video, I'm going to cover 6 new features of Optimizely Web. They've all been released in the last 6 to 9 months. And I've got to admit, there's some heavy hitters in this list. So I really think that the Optimizely team has been smashing out the features. So with that said, let's look at these features because this is going to be an action-packed video. If you are into experimentation, then you're probably well aware of the shock news Google made at the start of 2023, and that was it was going to sunset its A/B testing tool. Now, in my opinion, Google Optimize wasn't the best A/B testing tool in the marketplace. However, it was free. And secondly, it did one thing better than any other A/B testing tool, and that was integrate with Google Analytics. Now, because Google has sunset Optimize, historically, they didn't really allow third-party tools like Optimizely to access some of the data from Google Analytics easily. However, that's now changed. Now, because Optimizely hosts all of its data centers in Google Cloud, they basically spend millions and millions of pounds with Google every year. Google and Optimizely partnered together, so Google has exposed this API. So now it's possible within Optimizely to get any audience that you create in GA4 and have it appear within Optimizely Web for personalization and segmentation. So I've jumped us over to my GA4 instance, and you can see here I'm in my Audiences tab. Now, within this audiences screen, I'm free to create a brand new audience. I can define whatever I need to do. You can see that in my instance, I've got from the UK and interested in Optimizely. Now, within Optimizely itself, if I go to settings, if I go to integration, scroll down here, you can see we've got Google Analytics for audience targeting. Now, I'll try and hide some of this because it's got my personal details, but basically to enable this integration, you just need to validate with it, and then you need to put in your analytics property ID. After you've done that, once you go to the audience builder, you can click on add new audience at the top here. And now you can see that we've got this brand new tab, which is Google Analytics 4, and it's currently in beta. Now, in order to use those segments that I created in GA4, all I need to do is drag across this audience thing. And then from this drop down, you can see a list of all the segments that I created within GA4. Then all I need to do is pick one of these, give it a name, and off I go. Now, if you are using GA4, there's also a second plugin which has just been released that you're probably interested in as well. So if you use GA4 to do your reports, how do you know if a user's been added into an experiment? And more specifically, how do you know which variation that they've been added into? Because that will affect reporting. And this is where the second integration comes into play. So we've also got a brand new report generator that you can see here. Now, again, I'm hiding this because it's got my personal details, but in order to install this integration, you basically validate your account and you put in your analytics property ID. Now, after you do this, you can set it to run every single time that you set up in your experiment. If you go to experiments, let's click on this one here. Within this integrations tab here, you're going to be able to see this GA4 integration. Now, what will happen is that once this is enabled, you can see that in the background, every single time that you create a new variation for your experiment, Optimizely is going to give it a GA audience name. So we've got layout tests baseline and layout tests / layout test. Now, this is all we need to do in order to sync our events into GA4. So now if I go back into Google Analytics, if I go to engagement and events, if this extension has been set up correctly, you should see that we've got these 2 new events being tracked automatically. And if you see these, you know that everything's set up. Now you can set up some custom dimensions or properties, whatever they're called, to actually get access to this information. I won't cover that here, but as you can hopefully see, if you use GA4, it's very simple now to get this 2-way sync with Optimizely Web. The next feature is something which is super cool, but I bet you don't really have any idea what it actually does. And it's called the automatic sample ratio mismatch, or what Optimizely calls it, auto SRM. Rolls off the tongue. Now, I will put my hands up right here. I am not a data guru, so I'm probably not the best person to explain this. However, I will give it a shot. Now, the other thing to note is that if you actually want a proper explanation about how this works, then there's people much smarter than me who've written all about this. Every video I do, there's a related tutorial, so look in the description and find the actual proper explanation there. Okay, so were you aware that when you run any A/B test, and regardless of the tool, that you've got a very small chance of this thing called a sample ratio mismatch error from happening? So basically what happens is that when you set up your test, you have a 50-50 distribution, for example, and then when you check the results at the end of your experiment, your distribution might be a 60-40 or 80-20, whatever it might be. Now, this difference can actually affect the validity of your data. And when this weird anomaly occurs, it's called a sample ratio mismatch issue. Now, the cause for this sampling issue is pretty unknown. It can be a bunch of stuff. So it could be redirects on the page, could be JavaScript clashes, could be, connectivity issues that someone's been added into an experiment, but their event data hasn't been synced properly. Now, whatever it is, how most tools deal with this is basically they stick their head in the sand, pretend that there's no issue at all, and just let you get on with it. Now, this is how Optimizely used to work, but this new feature changes everything. Now, what Optimizely has done is they created another brand new way of doing sequential analysis that has real-time automatic sample mismatch ratio calculations in it. Yep, so granted, the maths behind this is super complicated. However, for you as an end user, you don't need to worry about any of that because this feature is incredibly simple to use. So I've jumped us over to an Optimizely report page, and you can see the automatic sample mismatch ratio thing in the top left here, and it's this experiment health. And basically every single time that I trigger this report, the API is going to get called and we're going to get a brand new real-time health check. So this health check has basically got two big benefits in my opinion. So the first one is basically going to give you confidence that you've got your experiment set up correctly and everything's a-okay. Now, the other thing, which I think is probably more important, is that it's going to give you an early warning detection that something's amiss. So let's say that you're running a test in another tool. It's going to take you 3 months to get statistical significance. After that 3 months, you get your results, but you realize you have this mismatch error. At that stage, your only option is to basically reset the test and start again. So 6 months to get the result of one experiment. However, using this simple health check here, after a month, let's say in Optimizely, you notice that there's something wrong with that data. At this point, you can pivot much sooner on. You can restart your experiment, do whatever it is to fix the issue, which means that you should be able to increase your test velocity due to these issues moving forward. So basically, just in case you weren't aware, within experimentation, the higher your velocity, the better your ROI, and this feature should help you get a better test velocity by preventing you making mistakes. The next feature is going to save you a bunch of time because you won't have to log into Optimizely every couple of days anymore to check if an experiment has hit statistical significance, because instead you can now get automatic email notifications. So setting up a notification is really easy. In the bottom here, you can see we've got this little profile. So basically click on that. Hope you can see it because it's tiny on the screen. Now, once you do that, you'll be jumped to the profile page. And then basically we've got an email address in here that you have to set up on login. And once that's there, when you click on this notification tab here, you'll see a list of all the different projects which you can access in your account. And then from here, all you really need to do is just click on the enable email notification. And then as soon as that notification is set up, as soon as any experiment that you create within that project hits statistical significance, you're going to automatically get an email with a link to the report page so you can see how that experiment has actually fared. The next new feature I want to tell you about is Optimizely Opal. So Opal is Optimizely's AI initiative, and it covers pretty much every single product that they own. Now, because there's so much to cover, I did a standalone 20-minute video on Optimizely Opal and everything it does. So again, check the description to find more information about Opal. However, within web experimentation, we have two brand new features that I want to tell you about. And the first Opal feature I want to show you is the chat. So available from the top sidebar, when you click on it, you can see you get access to this chat. And from here, you can basically ask AI any question you want. So this does use generative AI, and under the hood at the moment, this is ChatGPT, but this can be swapped out to different algorithms. So let's say that I don't know what to test. I can say, give me 3 ideas to test on an e-commerce website. And then after a few seconds, hopefully I should get a few different suggestions on what I could test on next. So maybe some free shipping. Now, one thing you will note is that this is hooked up to the Optimizely knowledge base. So you are going to get Optimizely suggestions and articles here. Now, the second feature I want to show you is a really handy one. So let's say that I click on this bit of text. Let's find this bit of text here. Now, whenever you click on any bit of text, you can see we've got this generate copy button. And when I click on this, Optimizely is going to give me 5 different text suggestions that I can use instead. And you can see that all I need to do is click on this use button. And again, this copy's now been updated. Now, as I said, this does only touch a small fraction of Opal within experimentation. So check the other video out if you want to learn more. The next feature is called Optimizely Connect Platform, or Advanced Audience Targeting. And this feature will allow you to pull in segments created in third-party CDPs like mParticle and ZeroTap and use them directly within Optimizely Web. Now, the cool thing about this feature is that behind the scenes, it's using a real-time or near real-time API. So what this means is that when someone lands on your page, an event can be sent to say mParticle. That's going to be sent to Optimizely, which then can be used on the page. Now, this round trip, obviously it's going to take a little bit of time, but it should be less than a couple of seconds. So this means that as a user jumps between different pages, in real time, you can target them. Okay, so I've jumped us back to Optimizely Web, and I'll give you a quick demo of how this advanced targeting works. Now, the funny thing about this demo is this is probably one of the easiest demos. However, behind the hood, this is probably the most complicated feature in this list. And I know from first-hand experience that the team that had to build this real-time API so it could scale and take millions of events on a daily basis, plus build a bunch of custom integrations that work in real time with a bunch of different CDPs, took a lot of effort. Now, if we jump over to this integration page on ODP, you'll see a list of integrations that are possible in real time. So we can see we've got Amplitude, we've got mParticle, we've got Telium, we've got Segments, we've got ZeroTap, and probably a few others. And basically the ones which have a pass-through here are the ones that you can use with Optimizely Web. Now, seeing this in action, if we go to the audiences page here, click on Create New Audience. After you enable this feature, you're going to see Advanced Audience Targeting right here. Now, what we can do is expand this, drag our custom segment across, and then within this drop down, depending on what tool that you set up, you're going to see all the segments created from your CDP appear here. And then all you need to do is select the segment you want to use, give it a name, let's call it like new ODP segment, and save it. After we've created our segment within Optimizely, you can then attach this segment to any experiment or personalization campaign that you want to run. So let's click on this layout test. If I go to audience, you can see that within this list, you can see I've got my new ODP segment. I can then click on this and I've done my pass through. It really is that simple. However, as I said, in the background, that took a lot of effort for a team to build. It would be unfair of me to say that this last point is a new feature. Instead, the thing I'm talking about is a whole new product that you get with certain tiers of experimentation. Now, if you look within the Optimizely portfolio, you're going to see that they sell a tool called Optimizely Content Marketing Platform, or CMP. Now, if you go to the Gartner and you look at the Content Marketing Platform quadrant, you'll see that this tool is the market leader. There's been nothing around it, and it's been that way since the quadrant existed. Now, what Optimizely has done within the last 6 months, 12 months, is they've created a bunch of experimentation-focused modules for the CMP. And what you get in the new world is a stripped down version of CMP with these experimentation modules, and they call it Feature Collaboration. Now, Feature Collaboration is a tool that will help you manage the whole of your experimentation program. So it will help you go from idea all the way to design to implementation, all based around a workflow. Now, this tool is pretty cool. I really like it. So let's quickly have a look at what you get. Okay, so we're in Feature Collaboration, and I'll quickly show you how we can take an idea, convert it into a hypothesis, which then gets actioned into an experiment, and then we can measure ROI in a single place. Now, to get started, we've got the request backlog. And this is really useful for the people who need to decide what to experiment on next. So what this work request dashboard does, it gives your team a single place to come in and log ideas. So currently, when it comes to thinking about what to test next, if you're basically doing communication over email, Slack, Teams, maybe over a spreadsheet or email or Word docs, then this can give you a better approach. Because what we can do is come in here, click on this add request, and then we can add in a work request. Now these requests can be customized, so you can add in all the fields that your business requires to jot down the information it needs in order to start a new experiment. So after we've got our experiment, the next thing a manager might want to do is actually think about when do we want to start this work. So one tool to help you visualize when we want to start the experiments is this calendar view. Now, aside from that, we have a timeline, which is basically a Gantt chart for the old school project managers out there. If you work in more product and development, you're going to be used to this kind of Kanban view. And there's also a list view. So if you prefer kind of like a sequential list of tasks on how to actually do something, this will be the view for you. Now, when it comes to actually taking your idea, what we can do is start fleshing out our hypotheses. So again, feature collaboration is going to give you some preset templates where you can actually add in things like hypotheses, the URL, the primary metric, all that kind of good stuff. And again, it's all customizable. Now, once you're happy with your hypothesis, we can then start to actually flesh out what our experiment might look like. So from here, we can link to, say, websites or like your dev sites. We can also add in images. And then within the image, we can also have dialogues. So we can actually talk to people about, we want to change this. We can have like a complete one-stop shop of actually understanding when an experiment is ready to work on. Now, after we've got to this stage, if I close this, so then after we're happy with our design work, we can actually convert this into an experiment. And from this page, we can actually link our idea and our hypothesis to an experiment that we add in Optimizely Web. And you can see all the data being measured in here, including audiences and metrics. Now, another thing which is worth mentioning about Experimentation Collab is that you can have fully customizable workflows. Because let's be honest, the process that your company goes through in turning an idea into an experiment is going to be very custom. Now, within here, you might actually decide to have people approve an idea, and this can be done over email, and they don't actually have to log into this tool to do that. Additionally, if you're using Jira, there's a two-way Jira sync here. So you can come up with your idea and your hypothesis here. You can then automatically create your Jira ticket. Then once someone's actually finished that ticket and puts it into complete, you can then trigger off another workflow here. So maybe compliance needs to do something, or maybe the data analysis team needs to look at the reports to see if we've got statistical significance. Whew. Well, hopefully now you can appreciate why I gave you an action-packed warning at the beginning, because I think this is an impressive amount of features for any vendor to roll out within a 6 to 9 month period. Now, for me, this is really positive because the year before, Optimizely decided to move all of its servers from AWS to Google Cloud, so we didn't really see that many Optimizely web features, but I think they've more than made up for it this year. Now, if you have enjoyed this video, we've reached that point. Do not forget to click on like and smash on the subscribe button. Now, if you haven't come across my channel before, my name is John. I currently work Optimizely, but I've been working with Optimizely products for about 20 years. I used to be an Optimizely OMVP. So if Optimizely is your bag, smash subscribe because I release a video every single Sunday aimed at making you more informed about technology. Now, if you are interested in learning more about Optimizely, then I did say at the beginning, I've recorded a video all about Optimizely Opal, the AI initiative. So on the screen right now, you can click on that to see that video. It's a banger. I recommend you check it out. Otherwise, until next Sunday, happy coding.